your podcast gives fantastic commentary on China, Mr. Feiner. Your co-host, Mr. Sullivan, they give a great context and depth into China. So I want to pick your brain on what's happening in Beijing right now. I mean, last month you saw the CMC purges over there with Zhang Yuxia and the other sort of heads being basically taken out, and now it's a shell. How secure do you think Xi Jinping is in Beijing right now? And what do you think? Do you think he will enlarge the CMC, or what do you think his next move will be after seeing what's happening in Iran and everything?
So one of the things that this entire event has underscored for me is how little sometimes even people who pay incredibly close attention to China, read all the intelligence that the United States government has about China, really understand about the kind of inner workings of the Chinese Communist Party, how decisions get made, how Xi Jinping's decisions get made, which are obviously the ones that matter most. In the case of the sacking of Zhang, you could argue that this is a sign of weakness and instability because, there were these reports, again, unsubstantiated, that he or others may have even been plotting to undermine Xi Jinping. You could also argue the exact opposite, that Xi Jinping would not have moved on Zhang if he wasn't extremely confident that he had consolidated a firm grip on power. You don't take on somebody as entrenched and consequential as Zhang unless you feel pretty confident about your own position. I don't know which of those is accurate, and I see analysts arguing on both sides. I'll give you another example. One of the big topics that's debated, we did debate this actually, literally, Jake and me on our podcast, is does the sacking of Zhang suggest that Xi Jinping's timeline for possible military action on Taiwan has sped up or slowed down? You could argue that it's slowed down because if you want your military to do something challenging, and this would be an incredibly challenging military operation, you would want to make sure you have full confidence in your military. And if you're firing the senior-most military officer, the person in charge of the planning for that operation, it suggests you're not confident enough in your military to go forward with something like that right away. The other side of that argument, though, is Zhang was reputedly one of the few people in the Chinese system who could speak truth to power, who could tell Xi Jinping, actually, we're not ready for this. It's not a good idea. I know you want by 2027 to be at least ready to take military action. Maybe we're behind schedule and you should slow that timeline down a bit. Now that he's not there, there is a younger cadre of military officers who are likely to move up, who, again, reputedly may be more aggressive, more confident, who, unlike Zhang, have not served in conflicts before. Zhang fought in what is really China's only significant war of the last 50 years in Vietnam in 1979. There are very few senior officers left who have that experience, if any. And so you could argue then that these more aggressive people who are less likely to tell Xi Jinping bad news may push the timeline faster. Again, I don't know the answer to that question, but there are good arguments on both sides.
I saw your red team, blue team debates that you do. And it was focused on Taiwan primarily. But let me ask you, India has actually drawn blood of PLA soldiers.
And vice versa.
And should be, exactly. And I know the world's attention is on Taiwan. Should we also be worried on our borders of what China could do next, or what Xi Jinping could do next to just solidify his position now?
Look, I think it's only prudent to be focused on all the potential threats that your country faces. And I'm not the one who should lay out what your security strategy should be. I do know from talking to Indian officials, including during the time that I was in government, that there is an increasing focus on China, in large part because of the border skirmishes that you described that, are sometimes downplayed, but that were combat in hand-to-hand combat, even in some cases. And so, I know those issues have not been resolved, even if the temperature is a bit lower now than it was in 2020.
Yeah.